And welcome back, everyone. Glad to be here today with Jenna Greene, who is a children's and young adult author. And have to ask, what got you inspired into writing?
um I birth I've always been a storyteller. We used to travel a lot in the summer. um my dad's a scientist, so we just followed him around, and my sister was always miserable. She was car sick, she was bored, but you gave me like two Shira Princess of Power figurines and a My Little Pony doll, and I was entertained for hours because I could just make up stories. And then when I was in second grade or third grade, a teacher said, "You know what? She's actually got some talent with writing stuff down." And so my parents, who do not write at all, got me a journal, and that nugget of information that said like maybe you could be a writer. It just stayed with me, and a little bit of ambition and a lot of hope, and here I am. Right? It takes a lot to go from wanting to write to actually writing.
Now, that is very true because I do know the process can actually be a little bit time consuming, and your mind wants to wonder, but yet you still wondering on the book itself. But it's like, well, let me step back and then get back to it. So there's a process to it that, like I said, a lot of people don't know the process that writers go through.
No, I think it's like 2% or 3% of people that say like, "Oh, I want to write a book," actually start and then finish. It's a very small percentage.
I'm glad to be part of that percentage.
Me too.
Now, children's books, I do know a lot of children's books are illustrated. What kind of process do you have to go through for illustrations? Do you do it yourself or you get somebody to do it for you?
As any of my students will attest, I cannot draw. Not Cannot trace a stick person for the life of me. Will draw a tree and then label it tree because they don't know what it is. In fact, one of their favorite online games when we were during COVID and we had to do things online was to make me play Pictionary. So no, I do not illustrate anything of my own. I use Upwork, and I find some wonderful illustrators there, and they do the work, and then they send me sketches or they send me proofs, and they're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I think it's pretty. I don't know what to add. I have no artistic insight whatsoever in terms of visuals. And I don't understand it. I don't get it. And it's horrible because I find that I'm quite a creative person. I like to dance. I can't draw. I, I don't have any talent there.
I'm not going to lie, I don't think I would be able to draw. Even like you just said, the stick person, I would probably screw that up.
Yeah.
Now, young adult, I do know a lot about young adult books since I'm a young adult author. The difference between the children's and the young adult is going to be a lot more detail. What's your perspective on the detail from the children's to the young adult?
It's interesting because I started in young adult, and now I'm going the opposite way. I'm going younger. But I mean, I started writing when I was 17, so I still was a young adult. So I kind of just wrote from my perspective, and then I taught middle school for 12, 13, 14 years. So I was surrounded by that middle grade young adult audience, and they were handing me their books and getting them, and honestly, you can attack any issue with any age. It's just how you describe it. Some things are kind of off camera or more hinted at or more metaphorical. Or if you do describe it, you have to also include the emotional kind of response. Like in an adult action book, someone can get murdered and you're just like, "Oh, that sucks," and you move on. That's not going to happen in a YA book. At least I hope not. Right? You're going to have to invest some time dealing with, because these are the audience as well as the characters. These are hopefully a first time experience for anything that they're going through. Maybe if you're writing about, my husband loves Jack Reacher, right? And if he punches someone in the face, he's probably done that 1,000 times. But when you're working in YA, and a lot of it is that loss of innocence, they punch someone, it's probably their first time doing that. So you're going to be describing, what they felt physically and emotionally. And so it's tricky, but in some ways it's a lot easier because you just focus on that emotion of, that first time experiencing something, the shock, the trauma, the tears, whatever it is. And then some stuff, you can have that choice. Are you going to have it hinted at, or are you going to have it right out there?
I can for sure see all that. And with the children's book, of course, you have to really tone it down a lot and go through the process of, I guess, the children's book, because you got to get the illustrator, you got to put it all together. What kind of detail and length does that take usually?
Maybe because I'm used to novels and novel series, I find that I've done 2 picture books to date. Winston the Well-Dressed Wombat and Bactavia Bat and the Search for a Hat. So I find it a lot easier, but I don't want to say it's easy. It's just slightly easier than writing an entire series, right? And fitting in the time to write around a job, especially a job I have, which is teaching, right? There's not so many hours of the day. And then, of course, because I hire illustrators, I can just, that's off my plate, right? And, I have people format for me because I'm not skilled in that. So that's off my plate. So, but I know a lot of people that do picture books and things, and they take that all on. And so it's a monstrous amount of work. It's just that for my purposes, I can kind of outsource some of that stuff. But I play a lot. I find I play around a lot with word choices for like hours and hours because there's not as many words in a picture book, but the ones you do have, you have to be really careful about, not careful, but considerate about, right? It's kind of like writing poetry. You only have so much time and space, so you want to make sure you convey a lot with one word, right? So you spend a lot of time just like changing one word back and forth, or putting a comma in and taking it out and taking it out, right? Versus with a book, I have a little bit more time and space to describe something, right? I can describe the tree in a couple sentences versus a word. So it's definitely, you have to adapt to it. You have to adapt with it. But because of the age of my daughter right now, she's a young reader, and I've switched and I work with younger students now. It's easy to kind of stay in that environment all the time. And I don't know if all authors have that, right? Where their day job and their writing career matches. But I'm surrounded by picture books all day, every day. So I'm always inspired, and then some things can be a little bit intuitive, right? For like rhyme and rhythm and things. But I find sometimes it's tricky when I span all those ages, right? Because I have picture books for those young children. I have YA series, some for like the younger YA, some for the older YA. And then now I'm starting to get, children's chapter books, coming out soon, right? So sometimes I get in trouble with editors and things where they're like, wrong vocab, right? Working it up and down the scale of that's too high, that's too low. And I'm like, right? So that can be a bit tricky when you're working in all those age groups, all those different reading levels.
I can definitely see the editing process being a headache for that. Now, you said you're a teacher also. How do you make time to write? Do you allot yourself a certain amount per week, per day for writing?
I write a lot in the summer. I
Okay.
try and get at least one manuscript done in the summer, if sometimes 2. We'll see about this summer. I know I'll get one done. And then during the school year, I try to write a couple evenings a week, but I also give myself permission to not write and not feel guilty. You know, I've done panels at conferences about writing around the day job and accepting those boundaries that I can't write full time. At least in the summer I can, but at least not during the school year. And some people get really down on themselves. And I'm like, no, you know, during report card season, I don't write a word. There's no time. I am stressed and I'm cranky and I am working on report cards. And then, you know, right after report card season, I can, you know, get a few more evenings a week in and you know, I'm okay to adapt to those highs and lows. I also have the benefit I'm not the type of writer that needs to sit for 4 or 5 hours and have that giant chunk of time, which I know a lot of authors need. I know that works for them and that is fine. It's just, I don't think I could sit still that long, but also I don't have that kind of time, right? So I'll write, you know, half an hour here, 45 minutes there, maybe an hour and a half, right? And so, but it adds up, right? You know, people think, oh, you only wrote for half an hour. Yeah, but if you do that 3 times a week, that's an hour and a half. That's, you know, 10 pages. That's whatever it is. I don't worry about word counts. You know, I know a lot of people do writing sprints or they worry about how much words they get down on in a day. And I can't. I don't have that kind of job and I don't have that kind of lifestyle. And I don't shame people that do those. I just am I'm just accepting of, you know, where I'm at. And so I try to write as much as I can and I don't pressure myself if it doesn't happen. Sometimes I open my computer, I'm like, woohoo, I have 2 hours. And I sit there and I go, nothing is coming. Well, drat. And I just close the computer and go for a walk. It is what it is, right? I'm not going to try and force it.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo, I'm not a fan of. I just can't do it because it's like forcing yourself. And forcing yourself to me just doesn't have that experience that you really want to put into a book. It's more, you want it to really flow out of you.
Yeah, and I know people that do it, and if it works for them, fine. It's not no. I mean, it's always in report card season, so no, it would never happen. And then B, I like to write a bit and then go daydream, you know, and figure out the emotion of the next scene or the action of the next scene. So I need that time to process. So sometimes, you know, even during the summer, I'll like write a page and then a couple hours later, write another page. And then a couple hours later, right? I have to kind of go back and forth and have that time to muse over what's going to happen, mull over what's going to happen. So it's not how I'm bred as a writer. And all writers are different, but this is what works for me.
Now, where can people find your books at?
So they can head to my website, which is jennagreene.ca, because I'm Canadian. They can follow me on TikTok, Twitter, all that stuff at J Greene Writes. Amazon, Jenna Greene, Green with the E on the end. And they're all there. In fact, there's a new release today. So they can go check out the 3rd book in the Reborn Mark series, the 3rd and final book in the Reborn Mark series.
Oh, well, congrats on having it come out.
Thank you.
And I know a lot of people are always happy when they finish a series.
This is the first time I've finished a series. I have another series, but it's not finished. So this is the first time I've finished a series, and I can't wait to find out what people think. But I'm just excited to be like, I'm done. I made it to the end. It feels good. It feels that her story is fulfilled and finished, and it does feel really nice.
I have to ask because, yeah, it will feel nice, but do you have a little bit of regret that the story's ended, that you're not continuing the story as well?
I thought I would be, but I think it ended in such a way that I wrote everything I needed to write. And maybe with other series I do in the future, I'll be like, no, I can't leave this world. But this is a story about a young girl named Lexel, and her story feels finished.
Well, that's good to hear. And congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
And everyone, go check out her books on Amazon or you can go to her website, which is jennagreen.ca. So go check out her website, go check her out on Amazon. But until our next show, everyone, adio.